Welcome to Southern Fried Baseball, brought to you by College Baseball Central, bringing you 90 feet closer to the greatest show on dirt. Here are your hosts.
Welcome in, SEC baseball fans. It's an exciting time as it's our first time talking about actual games. Nick, I know that we had some wild takes that we hope you'll come into fruition, but now we can talk about the games themselves. How did we do this weekend?
Yeah, it's a great feeling to not. We've spent the last, literally all fall and through the winter saying what team we think teams are going to look like. But yeah, now actually seeing them on the field. I don't know about you, but I know you were in Arlington, so you probably didn't get eyes on a ton of games. Luckily, I was able to watch just about all of them. And yeah, you'll notice there are some surprises in all the lineups, defensive alignments that hadn't even been talked about by coaches, and they trotted them out there on Fridays. So there's definitely a lot to talk about and recap after this first weekend.
You can say that I wasn't plugged in, but I had your coworker Matt Grissom and his three screens plus an iPad going, so I felt like I was pretty locked in on the weekend. And then big shout out to Wheels. Want to give another shout out to the Rydell report that's coming on right after us. So we're hopefully not going to do a 2-hour show like last time.
Yeah.
You mentioned that I was in Arlington. Let's go ahead and start there with probably the biggest surprise of the weekend. The Oklahoma Sooners go 3-0, dominate all three teams that they play. I know I was there and got to see it in person, but from a TV perspective, what did you kind of see from them?
Yes, the thing that stood out to me was the offense. I know we texted about that yesterday. This offense was very surprising. We talked about it in our preseason kind of coverage show. We didn't know what to expect, and we didn't think they'd be extremely explosive. They were to an extent. Now, it wasn't like long balls all over the place or anything like crazy, but that's also not a ballpark that is usually conducive to that, except for this weekend.
I don't know. They hit more than I thought. Yeah, they hit more than I thought.
A couple coaches said some stuff about the bats and balls, so we'll kind of see how that play shakes out. But yeah, the offense was really surprising. They are very scrappy, kind of young guys. It feels like a lineup where there's no, I don't know what right word to use. Like there's no like cornerstone piece where it's like this is who everything's around. It feels like 1 through 9, you could almost flip flop a lot of the guys around, and the lineup would make sense, and that's a good sign.
Yeah, I was going to say Trey Gimble was really kind of the star of the show as he was the MVP of the Shriners tournament. But I think what really stood out to me was just the mature approach from Oklahoma. Like it felt like against Oklahoma State and even TCU to some extent that, that's what good teams do when you give them free bases is they punish you. But I think the one thing that was the most impressive thing for me was the pitching staff. That was one of those things where we were like, hey, we really do have to kind of trust Skip Johnson. Cam Johnson's been a guy that we've been around. They're going to start a freshman on Sunday. What are we going to see for this OU staff? And, the freshman gets into consideration for pitcher of the week. It was just a fantastic, fantastic weekend all around for the Oklahoma Sooners. I know we're not doing a top 25 poll, but if you're taking away preseason bias, they feel like the number one team in the country if you're just going off that first weekend.
They definitely, it's if you do it kind of like college football where it's who have you beaten type of thing, then yeah, that's hard to argue. But yeah, if you take out preseason bias, absolutely. But obviously there's always going to be that, just human nature.
Yeah, 100%. It's an exciting time to be an Oklahoma Sooner fan. They are going to be playing tonight against New Mexico State on ESPN Plus, just because their construction's not really done yet. But OU kind of won the weekend for me. Who else kind of stood out to you, Nick, just because I don't think we're going to have time to talk about all 16 teams here?
Yeah, let's definitely in a positive way. I'll go to Kentucky. This is a Kentucky team. Like obviously the talent is there. We had questions. Obviously, see what kind of weekend rotation is going to look like. Let's see what this offense is going to look like. I was already surprised and happy that the fact that they named Jackson Jelkin the Friday night starter is a massive bonus to this team, because we kind of assumed he'd be their Sunday guy just because he hasn't thrown in 2 years. So that and the fact that they were willing to put him on Fridays means they know he's fully healthy. They've been happy with what he's shown so far coming back from winter break. And he absolutely proved it. He shoved against the UNCG team that's never bad. Like they're obviously not an SEC caliber team, but it's usually a pretty decent mid-major. And so that was very exciting to see. Ben Cleaver, Nate Harris both look good as well. And then the offense it's another Kentucky offense that's just going to annoy people. They were 23 for 23 in stolen bases. So that was definitely a high. Now the Tyler Bell injury, there's kind of some stuff floating around. You hate when they say indefinite. It sounds like it's going to be about a month type of thing, a month and a half. But you never know. It's good thing is it's a glove shoulder, it's not his throwing shoulder. So we'll kind of see what comes of that.
Yeah, the rumor that I've been hearing is that he's going to be seeing a second opinion later in the week.
Yeah.
They do get a little bit of a luxury as Luke Lawrence, who was at, I believe, Illinois State. He was a shortstop. Obviously, he was second base last year with Tyler Bell being the shortstop. But I think the one thing that really stood out to me was just the demeanor and calmness of Ben Cleaver. Like, this is a guy that probably should have been in the discussion to be the Friday night role. Jelkin obviously wins it in the fall. And that is something that Ben Cleaver could have pouted about. And instead it was just business as usual and really kind of tedded the tide, if you will, off of the Tyler Bell injury. And the 23 stolen bases, I think, was just absolutely absurd.
Yeah.
Because you can talk about the opponents, but outside of Kentucky, I think it was Texas who stole either 5 or 6 bases. So it's not like they're playing these murderers row and then Kentucky just plays a bad team. Like, I think that that's just Kentucky baseball.
Yep.
Is they're going to steal, they're going to be a pest, they're going to have all these pitchers. But again, the Tyler Bell thing is a really, really big one that we're probably going to be talking about this team. And hopefully if he comes back healthy, it won't be this big what if. But, he's a program-defining player, and he's not just somebody that they're just going to replace. Hindle, who they moved over to second base when Lawrence moved over to short, he played fantastic. He had a few hits in that Saturday game. But, again, he's not Tyler Bell.
Yeah, especially when we have questions about not how they're going to produce runs, because we know how it's going to be a little small ball approach compared to most SEC teams. But when you talk about guys who do have that kind of gap to gap, who are going to hit your doubles, who are going to hit your home runs, if you lose one of those out of your lineup for a couple months, that can hurt.
All right, Nick, we're going to completely change gears. 15 of our 16 SEC teams have winning records. So really just excluding Vanderbilt here. Who is the most unhappy team that's over 500 right now?
I will give you 2. And these are because they are both extremely passionate fan bases. One will be Alabama, and they're both in the same state. One's going to be Alabama. I don't think they expected to lose Washington State, especially with Tyler Fay on the mound. That was un-Tyler Fay-like. Now, Zane Adams came in and absolutely shoved on Saturday, which was a good sign because they were kind of flip-flopping those roles last year. But, yeah, that was a little bit concerning to see. Now, Washington State maybe not as bad. They can still recruit up in the Northwest, so it's –
I think that's a big red flag. I don't think there's any way to sugarcoat it. I think that they've been talking about Omaha on campus. They've been trying to get these students to buy in. And then I know that LeBron had the kind of backdoor home run in the 9th to make it seem a little bit closer.
Yeah, it was 8-2, yeah.
They just kept, to be flat on opening day when there's all these expectations. And this is one of the things I tweeted out is, those students, one, are now primarily from the Northeast. They're not really these baseball diehards like they kind of were in years past. And then 2, there's so many other things on the campus at Alabama that baseball's fighting for that this felt like one where they really have to get off to a hot start. So when they come into SEC play, the fans are actually going to be bought in. So I think that this is one of those losses that really from an outside perspective, I think kind of hurts them a little bit.
Yeah, we'll kind of see how it plays out. They're still a fun, exciting team. The crowd is going to be there, and Justin LeBron's going to bring in his own excitement. And I wouldn't say I'm sugarcoating it, considering I'm putting him on the bottom 2 teams that I saw performance in this weekend. But the second one for me is Auburn. That was and not the reason that they won all 3. You see that, and obviously Game 3 was just a blowout by the time Youngstown State ran out of pitching. It was more so this is supposed to be what some people have considered the best offense in the SEC this year. To put up 2 runs in the first 2 games against Youngstown State, who is, we're talking about these mid-majors, that's not exactly one to write home about compared to some of these other ones that the SEC teams played. So that was very, very concerning. Now you could flip that around and say the starting pitching that we had the most questions about was extremely, extremely good. Jake Marciano starting on Fridays for them, the Virginia Tech transfer, was lights out. So that was great to see. But yeah, this offense, and then obviously Chris Rembert going down. He's out 3 to 6 weeks with a high ankle sprain. So that kind of hurts. We'll see if he's back in time for SEC play. It sounds like, that kind of timeline puts him about maybe missing the first SEC weekend, kind of right around there. But yeah, this Auburn offense was was pretty shocking.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I was really shocked because, again, Youngstown State out of the horizon. They're not going to be a tournament team. That's Wright State's conference.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that really jumped out to me was, one, the bullpen being nails. But, again, it's Youngstown State. But just the lack of hitting early, like, is what really – because, I mean, they had to come from behind in those 2-1 victories too. That was the part that I thought was so crazy, is it wasn't like they were just setting the world on fire, then playing with their food, leaving a minute. They didn't play good at all, and then they kind of figured it out down the stretch, which, again, I have to say it out loud, but that's not going to be something they're going to be able to do in the SEC, is they can't play around the way that they did. I think the one for me is I'm going to do 2, and this is exclusively going off of just vibes from the fan base. 1, South Carolina, having the team not be ready to play. But I know that Maneri got a lot of heat for that, and rightfully so. But I would say 90% of schools don't hit on Sunday, which was because they did the doubleheader on the field. Like, that's a veteran team with a lot of transfers. You should be able to get yourself ready to play without hitting on the field. Very few schools hit on the field on Sunday. I know Maneri kind of took a lot of the heat for that, but I just think that that's got to be on you as a player. I think that's utterly embarrassing. And then
I think he just said that. I really do think he was just covering for his players there. I think
100%.
I think it's being blown out of proportion that it's his fault. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just saying it's 100% on the players. And then 2 for me, the Texas Longhorns, because that was a game that I was kind of just following on Twitter on Saturday. And I thought that they actually lost until I went back and watched the Wheels highlight with Luke Harrison. I mean, Luke Harrison pitched fine. The offense, again, that's probably what it's going to do. Tenney, I'm kind of starting to maybe get a little bit worried about him because he only had 1 hit on the weekend. Yes, he did have, I think it was 7 walks, and he's top 3 in OPS. But again, 1 hit. I think if a lot of SEC teams are going to kind of, they're not going to pitch around him like a lot of these teams are early. But I think that the Texas lineup, what it's showing me is that they're going to have somebody other than Tenney try and beat them. And that's going to be the story of this Texas lineup, is can somebody other than Tenney step up? And this weekend it was Mendoza, who, again, he added those 10 pounds and just looks phenomenal and used every bit of it to get those home runs out. But I think they got to get a little bit of production from that outfield. I think it's still kind of a musical chairs puzzle piece thing with what they're really going to do outside of Aiden Robbins, who, again, was really, really impressive that weekend.
Yeah.
But I think that's the one thing that Texas – I think that they need to, as a fan base, temper expectations, because it feels like if they don't get run rules every single game, like that the fan base just freaks out, if you will.
Yeah, and I guess just from watching it, I was actually delightfully surprised with UC Davis. Like, they looked, I don't want to say very good, but they actually looked good. Like, it didn't seem like it was all Texas playing bad. Like I felt like when I was watching Auburn or when I was watching Alabama, I felt like, okay, these 2 teams just aren't playing good. For Texas, outside of like they needed some massive innings that kind of came up clutch here and there. Aiden Robbins was extremely good. Absolutely, as advertised, that dude's electric. The Carson Tenney thing, if you remember, he kind of did the same thing last year. He started off very slow, and that could be like a thing with him. But
he was up at Notre Dame last year, so you could kind of cut him a little bit more slack because they aren't hitting on the field every day. They're probably not
but some players are just like that, just mentality. Some players just need to see more reps than others do. And the fact that he was still maybe seeing the ball better, considering he had 7 walks, I think he only struck out, 2 or 3 times. So it wasn't like he was going up there willing to just swing at everything. So I think you could kind of take away that from it. But yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about the good things, yeah, Dylan Volantis, that was the question. Could he be a starter? I tell you, if game 1 if his first start is anything of things to come, then yeah, they're in very good shape. And I don't think he'll be their Sunday guy all year long if he's looking like that.
I think the scariest part was I think he retired 14 of the first 16 batters. Is he didn't really look that stressed or like he was really throwing that hard or, really breaking his curveball. Like, it was a very kind of carefree, laissez-faire kind of outing was what I saw from the highlights on Wheels. But and that's his like carefree, laissez-faire, is taking a no-hitter into the middle innings. I think that the other thing that's scary if you're an opponent of Texas is Thomas Burns didn't pitch that good, and the bullpen around him really insulated that and didn't punish him at all. Like, there's not very many teams where if your number one bullpen arm, has an outing like he had, that the pitching staff can kind of cover it. And that's the scary thing for me is the bullpen with Burnsy didn't really look that good. And they had so many guys around him. It's like, okay, if we need somebody to come in a second inning of work, it's not really that much of a concern. It's just this depth of this Texas pitching staff is just really, really off the charts.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're the same way, but I'm not worried about what Burns is going to be.
No, not at all.
We've seen it. We've seen enough of it to know that he'll figure it out. And everybody has bad outings. First one of the year for him could have just been a multitude of things. There's also I think an infield hit too, and things kind of just spiraled. So it was just one of those things. But yeah, you mentioned the bullpen and the other starters. I mean, Ruger Riojas was great. Luke Harrison looked good, not great. I would say he was kind of in and out of the zone quite a bit, but yeah, this pitching staff was definitely all it's supposed to be. Just we'll see what we get from the offense.
All right, we gave our overreactions. What is your underreaction of the first week in SEC play?
I think what's not getting talked about enough is this LSU pitching staff. The offense, great, and it's cool to put up those giant numbers, but to give up 15 runs to Milwaukee is not great. Kason Evans didn't look great in his start. There's some issues. The bullpen, there's a lot of bullpen guys that came in and just couldn't fill the shoes. So that was concerning. Yeah, and we talk about Milwaukee. This is another team they're not going to come out of their league either. This isn't a tournament.
It's the same league, ironically.
It's also the Horizon. That's right. So this is a team that's not historically kind of up to that level, and to put up 15 runs against LSU, that was kind of a concerning thing for me.
Yeah, that's one thing that really jumped out to me. But I think the lineup for me, I think was really, really impressive because you have Dardar come in, Reeves. I'll say this. I am really glad I'm not Jay Johnson and having to kind of pick who plays in this lineup because I know Stanfield kind of has that hand thing, so he's going to be out. But there's like 12 or 13 guys that they could theoretically start that when they enter that lineup kind of always do seem like they're getting on base. Like, I mentioned Reeves, Oliver Cerna. I don't know if you saw that picture of him today in the weight room doing 140.
No, I didn't.
I'll have to get Grissom to tweet it out. But again, that LSU lineup. But I think the one thing for underreactions, because I really wanted to say Liam Peterson's going to be my overreaction, is especially after it starts that Aiden King and Cooper Walls had that he really shouldn't be in that Friday night role. I went back and watched it. I think a lot of things went against him that day that in an average start wouldn't. One, the error in the first inning that allows runs. Two, I kind of felt like he got a little bit squeezed, and you could tell kind of in that later innings he started to kind of put the ball over the plate. And then four, I think I wouldn't say luck from some of the hits that UAB had, but there was a lot of 0-2 counts where he jammed them, and then the guy just kind of fisted it over the second baseman's head. I don't actually feel that concerned about Liam Peterson being moved out of that Friday night role. I think it was just a bad start, a bad night, something that Florida is very, very accustomed to. And again, it wouldn't surprise me to see him rattle off 3, 4, 5 quality starts in a row. It seemed like it was just a bad luck start for me.
Oh, Quentin for us is our resident, obviously. I
saw it.
And the fact that he's worried makes me worried. It does seem like the third year where it's just like we keep expecting like the talent is there and we keep waiting for him to take this step up and this jump. And it still feels like that hasn't quite happened yet. Now, could it obviously this year? Maybe it takes a couple of weeks. Absolutely. But it just feels like one of those where it's like, okay, why hasn't it happened yet? And Q says his competitiveness just doesn't seem to be there, but we'll see.
Not to circle back to Oklahoma, but we were kind of saying that about Cam Johnson.
Oh, I still don't trust Cam Johnson yet.
I was going to say, that's the other thing too. And the complete other side is I'm kind of trying to stay away from all the Cam Johnson hype.
Yeah.
Because I've seen him, like, I think last year he had a pretty good opening day start. And then a week later in Round Rock, when I saw him, I think he got chased in the second inning after 6 walks. So, it is very possible that they have stuff click. But I'll say this for if you're Liam Peterson, you have to kind of feel like you're looking over your shoulder a little bit with how good Aiden King and Cooper Walls were in the fall, were in the spring, and then going out there and shoving against UAB. That's the other thing that I think might be saying the quiet part is that he might not get moved out of the Friday night because of his starts itself. It might just be Aiden King and Cooper Wall pushing to move up in the rotation.
I think Aiden King should have been the Friday guy to begin with, personally. So but it was also like it felt like a 1A, 1B type situation where it could have gone we wouldn't have been surprised if they would have named Aiden King initially as the Friday guy. So I think that's probably how it ends up maybe not the rest of the year, but at some point King probably moves to Fridays. But yeah, it can go either way. But yeah, this is a good pitching staff. All three should be very good. We'll still see what the bullpen has. Still a little bit of questions there, even though they threw pretty well behind those starters. The offense though was great. The offense outside of like I said, a weird Friday. And I don't know if it was this like not having Sully there or just some weird something was going on.
There was just something off.
To be,
everything about it seemed off.
Yeah, just one of those days. And then obviously rebounded Saturday, Sunday.
Like even the broadcasting didn't seem like they were too into it on opening day because, like I said, I went in, binge watch all the wheels. Everybody else, like Glenn Rollins at LSU's getting you ready. Florida's just kind of, it felt like a midweek game. And to be honest, that's kind of what Florida played like defensively.
I have 5 games on, and so 4 of them are muted, and that was a muted one. So I can't talk to that.
Offense. What offense kind of surprised you the most? Sasha, who do you think had the best offense of the weekend?
I'll leave yours to you because I think I know where you're going to go with it. So I'll take Tennessee, and I'll take it for this reason that obviously there's like the question marks I know that you and a few other guys had was kind of where is this production going to come from? Everywhere apparently. Blaine Brown especially he came like being the transfer from Rice. Now he's hitting 600, hit 3 home runs first weekend, 15 total bases. And, he's also starting. He's also a midweek starter this Tuesday, where he's off the mound as a lefty throwing 95, 98. So that's going to be exciting for Tennessee fans to see him. But, yeah, I mean, and especially the way they did the lineup, where Henry Ford leading off with Blaine Brown second. That's 6'5", 6'5". And just immediately the pitcher's like, okay, well, I better get settled in or I can lose a ball real quick. And then, to have guys just step in throughout the order, there was 3 different pinch hit home runs throughout the weekend. And this, we'll see Manny Marin injured his hand after he got hit by a pitch. He was out after game 1. He sounds like he can be back next weekend for the Kent State series, starting shortstop. Levi Clark didn't have the best weekend, but he's one of those, he feels like, and I heard somebody else mention this, where he's Jordan Beckish, where it's like when he's hot, and when he's cold, he can be very cold. So he's just a streaky guy, so you know what you're going to get from him. But yeah, this Tennessee offense, and you could say it's Nichols, but it's just another one. I mean, a lot of the other offenses that SEC played similar competition, but yeah, the offense was extremely, extremely good this weekend.
I know that we're talking about offenses, but I think the one thing that really jumped out to me was just kind of the moxie and swagger from Tegan Kuntz. I know that was the one thing, as I said, does Tennessee have that kind of guy? But seeing him kind of strut around with confidence on the mound from a Friday night role, it really did kind of remind me of what they had with Liam Doyle. And I know that all the concerns that I have about, hey, who's kind of the douchebag that's going to go to bat for them, I think it's going to be Tegan Kuntz in a good way. I think that was the one thing is I kind of came away very, very surprised from Tennessee. And I don't know if you saw the pair kind of shootout, but Tennessee is right there in the top right with the most in the SEC and the least allowed.
Yeah, and I think there's been that talk about Tegan Kuntz. He was actually that guy. He was a Liam Doyle type last year. Apparently, everybody said the reason he struggled, he kind of came out and got hit around his very first start. Of course, as a true freshman, if your start's in SEC play and he got beat around, it sounded like he lost some confidence and he kind of lost that swagger, gained it back in the Cape, and now you kind of see it today. From a pitching standpoint, Evan Blanco is Evan Blanco. He's not super surprising on being that Sunday role. Dude, Landon Mack is the real freaking deal. I heard there was Chase Dolinger comparisons that I had heard from the fall. Hadn't really seen it in person. Watching it, it's like, oh my gosh, you talk about a guy who struts around the mountain. It's like, okay, here's 97 coming at you and hit it or don't. I was very, very impressed with him. So yeah, I know people had concerns about these starters. I don't at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really, balanced team. Again, it is Nichols. Nichols is probably going to finish near the bottom of the Southland. They missed the Southland tournament last year. But, I think just making it as easy for Josh Elander as you can in his first year, I think. And these were very, very easy weekends for the Vols. And, moving on, the one that you kind of left it for me, Texas A&M. I mean, last year, this is a team whose, butthole was so tight you could pull a banjo string through it. And then this year, I mean, they were hitting home runs after home runs after home runs. They were flipping bats, having fun. That's the one thing for me is, like I said, all these opponents really aren't that high quality. But A&M struggled with Elon last year, and that was where we kind of had a lot of issues with them. And, I mean, it is just a deep, loaded lineup. It felt like everybody that they kind of ran in there just hit a home run. Like, Sorrell was the SEC Player of the Week. And I don't even really think he had the best weekend, as my vote went to Wesley Jordan, the Baylor transfer. Nico Partita really didn't have the best weekend, if you will. But, again, he had a home run on opening day as a true freshman. The pitching – again, was kind of concerning on Friday and Saturday before Aiden Sims kind of leveled it on Sunday. But it almost seems like it's not going to matter with this lineup.
Well, we'll kind of see, because this is it. Like, it is Gavin Grahovic. He looks completely healthy again. Obviously, Caden Sorrell. Question marks with the pitching staff. Obviously, I think Shane Sadeo is better than that he threw Friday. That was kind of surprising. To see,
he hasn't pitched in almost a year and a half, in 18 months.
You got to give him a break for that. And yes, absolutely. That's why I said I just think he's better than that. And so, but yeah, we'll see it with this offense, because at times last year the offense wasn't the issue. Where they would just light up the scoreboard at times, and it was just but then the next game it would be okay. Well, they scored 2. So let's see it for a little bit longer. But yeah, I think what you kind of mentioned it, like you mentioned with Tennessee, the swagger. It felt like you could feel the confidence better in this team this year. It's only one weekend, I get it, but that just seemed like a more confident offense, up and down the lineup. Chris Hathcoat stepping in, he seems like he's a dude, and he's also who do I even compare it to, where it's just he's a rub it in your face guy too when he gets a hit or a double. It's like he's the guy who's going to be yelling after a double and gets on base.
Fisher, that's who I know he's right-handed. I know he doesn't have any similar swing, but that's who he kind of reminds me of, is an Andrew Fisher.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody be on Fisher's level. That dude's a psycho. But yeah, he is like that. And especially somebody who transferred down from Maryland, it's sometimes it takes people a minute to warm up, and where it's okay, let me get my feet under me before I'm that guy. But it just seems like he stepped in and he's that guy immediately, which is, that's a great sign for them.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Maui Ohuna a few years ago from Tennessee. He was one that was, a very, very heralded portal guy that was supposed to kind of immediately be plug and play. And he really kind of struggled to be that confident guy. What do you think of him playing second, though? I know that was the one thing that I had kind of heard around a lot of A&M baseball, was that he wasn't the best fielding shortstop, but he might still play shortstop. I thought it was kind of interesting, though, that it was Kellner, not Partita at short.
Yeah, I think that was the one thing, and I remember I discussed that on our preview show. I was concerned about Hathcoat at short. Well, it turns out he didn't even play short, and you mentioned it. It really is a range thing, and the defense, his bat has to be in the lineup somewhere, and the outfield's pretty much taken up from what it seems like, and so that kind of, I guess it comes down to it. I guess it's just, do you want Hathcoat and Partita playing? Which one do you want playing second? Which one do you want playing third? And that's probably just a comfortability type of thing between the two, because they both seem kind of equal speed, reaction time, that type of thing. So I guess it probably is just who you're most comfortable with there. But I like it better for Texas A&M, because it feels like in other positions you are sacrificing defense for offense. Caden Sorrell playing center field is to have him in the bat. He's not a true center fielder kind of blazer out there where it's he's not going to save 10 defensive save runs. It's not going to be at 10.
I don't know. He had that diving catch.
He had a diving catch.
He's a very underrated, I think, defender.
Yes, but one diving catch doesn't.
I see what you mean. But he's not like a burner. He's
correct.
not.
Correct. So
he's not Mike Anu. Mike Anu's.
No, correct. Yeah. So there's other positions where you're sacrificing defense for the offense, and you don't want to do that everywhere in the field, especially it's up to me. You want your 2 middle infielders to be the best defenders you have. So if you're sacrificing offense in one position and it being shortstop, I think that's a good call.
Yeah, and just to kind of harp on the defense, Grahovic looked like a natural at first base. He'd been playing there for years. He made a couple really nice plays. I think the big thing for me, too, was the no errors. I know that was one of their biggest deficiencies last year, was that they didn't kick the ball around. So, like I said, you worry about, Grahovic playing first base, Hathcoat playing second base for the first time, Kellner and Partita playing for the first time in college. They didn't kick the ball around. Is just the confidence off of it. As we kind of wind it down here, any closing thoughts? You want to read off your players of the week?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of discussed all three of mine. Blaine Brown being the one where it was just like, hey, first time in the SEC. Let's see, as a true sophomore after having a good year at Rice. I think he was like the number 10 guy in the portal. He showed he's the real deal. Jackson Jelkin, more than just the performance, was the fact that he now has the confidence and the coaches have the confidence in him to be that Friday night ace and not just, he's not going to be stuck in that Sunday role. And then we saw, like, it was like, I turned it on and it was electric stuff. Like, he was up to 98, 99 at some points. And then Dylan Volantis, mentioned it earlier, question about could he be a starter? It looks like it so far. So yeah, I mean, those are kind of my three. I guess one other thing I'll touch on before you get to yours, we kind of be remiss not to talk about this one. We haven't touched on Vandy at all. So I guess here's where I'm at with Vandy. My concerns there are still concerns, and it is still the offense. I think people are getting kind of overtaken with, oh my gosh, look how powerful they are. That was still only 3 guys. The other 6 this weekend were not extremely impressive to me. Like obviously it seems like it's there, and the power, we've been talking about it for years with this team. Where's the power going to come from? And it's never been a case of you can't just live there with 1 or 2 guys, where it's like, especially in SEC, if they can work around those 1 or 2 guys, where's the rest of the run producing going to come from? That's kind of what it seemed like this weekend. Like we saw that in game 3. Like after they don't have 2 guys who hit 3 home runs apiece in a game, where's this offense going to come from? So that was one thing. And then a Sunday starter, that seems like an issue for them. We kind of know what we're getting Friday, Saturday out of them, but Sunday seems like it's up in the air, and it didn't look great against Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I was going to leave on them last just because I had Brody Johnston as one of my players.
Okay.
But Damian Ruiz getting on base, I think 12 times in a row. I haven't had the updated one because no one could watch the Arkansas game. So I don't know if he...
today. No, he 1 for 3 today.
And then Wesley Jordan, who actually had a higher average than Caden Sorrell. He went 9 for 15 with 7 runs, 7 hits, 2 home runs, and 2 doubles. And then Brody Johnson hitting 500 with 3 home runs in a big, big ballpark. It's him. It's Barcy who had those 3 homers on opening day. Outside of that, they really didn't do anything. I don't know where this team's going to get hits from. Like, I really don't. It's really sad, I think, that somebody who has the reputation of Tim Corbin has all these constraints that some of these other teams don't have. Because this feels like a team that has the pieces in place to get some additional portal bats and bullpen arms. That's what I think it really comes down to is, you have a solid one of Holcomb, Barcy, Brody Johnson, and where's the Chris Hacopians? Where's the Jake Durs coming over from Florida Atlantic? Where's the Timos that you can plug and play as graduates? They just don't have that. They don't have the depth of an SEC team. They don't have the depth even, I think, to beat Oklahoma State, as that was kind of coming. And it's kind of convenient that the game that they won, the bottom of the lineups really shined. And then the games that they lost, the bottom of the lineup, they were just mowing them down. Again, outside of Holcomb, who had that 3 home runs, he didn't really hit that good. Riker Waite, 200. Reston Rigdon, .091. Carter Johnston, .83. Max Jensen, hitless. Tommy Goodwin had 8 plate appearances, hitless. Mac Whitcomb, hitless. It's just and I will say this, they moved Riker Waite up to the leadoff spot because he was sitting down in the order. It's just, this is a team where you have to feel like they're going to get some good outings on Friday and Saturday. But for as much as we talk about how bad Texas is at hitting the ball, I think Vandy's going to be the one that ends up being the kind of Achilles heel like we were talking about with Texas, because they don't have the pitching depth. They don't have Tenney or Mendoza that they can kind of get. It's just a bad SEC team.
Well, yeah, it's just one of those. It feels like Corbin will figure it out. It seems like he usually does. Like halfway through the season, all of a sudden this team will go on a run. But yeah, the Riker Wake thing starting it short. He started it short all 3 games. Kind of tells me, obviously, all the reports were that Brody Johnson was going to get a chance to play it, and considering literally first weekend, it's Riker Wake out there, and then he hits, what'd you say, 08 or whatever, 080 or something. Not impressive. So that's a
200.
defensive guy, 200. Well, that's one of those where it's like Riker Wake. Do you take him out of the lineup at short and sacrifice defense to get another bat in there? Like the Johnstone brothers, I expect them to eventually hit. Like they can hit. Those are two good transfers they brought in. And I remember talking about this in the fall with somebody where they were labeled as the number one. They got the number one transfer portal class, which was or behind Georgia. Sorry, it was the number one overall class when you consider high schoolers too. It was just I didn't like the names they got were nobody that was like, oh my gosh, this is a program changing bat. Like it didn't feel like a Henry Ford. It didn't feel like it's like some Chris Akopian, as you mentioned. It didn't feel like basically half the LSU guys they got. So it's just one of the things. Yeah, where's this offense going to come from? Because the pitching staff obviously we'll figure it out as it always does for Vandy.
I think the other scary thing for me too is they're not fast, nor do they really play that good a defense either. Like it's not like last year with Kentucky where we're like, okay, like they could kind of bunt, steal, walk their way into stealing a few games. Like again, this is by SEC standards, but they don't do anything exceptional, and they do a lot of things not very good. It's going to be a long season for them, unfortunately, which again feels very weird saying after one weekend, but all of the same issues that we talked about kind of came to fruition.
Yeah, exactly.
Some notes just for schools that we missed. Missouri goes 2-1 against Mount St. Mary's with a 34-3 victory on Sunday after losing it on Monday. Ole Miss goes 3-0 against Nevada. I'm going to be honest, that felt like the most irrelevant series in the SEC. Brian O'Connor's first weekend in Starkville. They beat Hofstra 3 times. Sunday, they used just a plethora of bullpen arms. Any closing remarks that you have?
Yeah, I guess it's. I want to tell people not to panic, especially SEC fans are known to kind of just jerk reaction season right now, where we got some people saying like, oh my gosh, this is such an Omaha team, and some others like Arkansas fan base, or you look at Vandy fan base where it's like, oh my gosh, we're gonna suck. So I would say just relax. Like it's always week one. Very rarely has a this is well known in our sport, is very rarely does a team who's preseason ranked like 1 or 2 actually end up being the best team in the country by the end of the season. So yeah, that was my takeaway from it. Great weekend. Got to give props to Missouri for putting up a 34 spot. I heard it was most runs they scored since 1908, which is was crazy. Didn't know they were playing baseball there at 1908, but so that was a surprising one.
Yep. Barring Oklahoma putting more runs on them against New Mexico State, which I don't see happening, Missouri will have scored the most runs on the weekend. Did want to give one note. I know that we're not putting out a poll, but I saw D1 put out their poll. If a team loses one game, like they're going to stay in the same spot. Like you got to kind of get that in your head as a baseball fan. Like UCLA taking 2 of 3, Arkansas taking 2 of 3, they're not going to fall at all. Like that's what you're supposed to do is win the series.
Yeah, but D1's known to be very stubborn with their rankings too. It's just one of those.
They're very stubborn.
They hate to admit when they're wrong. So that really is one of those things. I'm kind of the opposite, being a baseball guy. I would like to see, especially Earl, like if you win a series against SEC team, but lose a game, don't move down. If you lose a game to UAB, would I be mad if you drop 2 or 3 spots? If you lose a game if you lose 2 games, I mean, I know Vandy dropped a couple of spots. Like, yeah, okay. But it really is like, it's one of those where it's like, should UCLA still be ranked number 1 because of just preseason bias? They clearly are, but if you get beat by a team that you should be way down from you, I'm fine with dropping them 2-3 spots.
Yep. That is all we have time for. We have the Rydell report coming up at 7. We're going to be back later this week to talk everything in week 2 that's going to be coming up. Once again, this is Jake McKeever and Nick Hathcoat. See everybody back here later this week.